Hello, and welcome to Split Informed and SplitSmart. I am your host, Carl Roberts, and excited to be here for a show on the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. The intention behind SplitSmart, or Split Informed and SplitSmart, is to help all couples, amicable or sometimes hostile, to more easily reach a positive, equitable, and peaceful agreements in their divorce. I believe that most everyone in their right mind or not, deep down wants peace, love, and equality in their post-divorce life. And I believe that no one person should be able to deny that from the other or their children. That is the principle upon which SplitSmart was founded, a tool that helps everyone, regardless of emotional or mental state, better stay on course for a peaceful and more joyous ever after. Before solving problems, you must first understand their root causes. For divorce, we know that the single difference between a good divorce and an ugly divorce is simply the presence of a bad actor. Bad actors can be one or both, man or woman, lawyer or litigant. We know that bad actors are good people who have often gotten tripped up by their emotions, bad advice from friends, families, or lawyers, and often a personality disorder of being a narcissist or borderline. My guest today is Betzalel Rothstein, a Jewish New York mediator. We'll be talking about Jewish divorce. And I just told him a minute ago, so I'm not used to calling out somebody's faith like that, but great to have you on the show, Betzalel. Betzalel. And,
you get it right sooner or later.
It just takes a little more practice.
Yeah,
How are you today?
I'm doing great, thanks. And thanks for having me. And it's talking about Jewish divorce specifically, really, I think kind of falls in line with the overarching topic of religion and divorce. Sometimes.
Well, hey, I'll tell you what. Before we kind of go down that path, what brought you to give us a little bit of your background. What brought you to this journey?
So I'll tell you honestly, what brought me to this place is really my own life experiences. My parents went through a divorce. My mother's parents went through a divorce, and I went through a divorce. I'm happily now remarried more than 10 years. Thank God. My wife went through a divorce. My wife's parents went through a divorce. So there's been a lot of divorce that has impacted my life and the life of my extended family. And, just seeing how destructive bad divorces can be on innocent children, in general, and, the extended families, the grandparents, the cousins. I just really have had this idea of getting involved somehow to do something to make divorce better for others. And after years and years of trying to figure out, where I would go with this, certainly wasn't going to be becoming a lawyer. And I discovered the great practice of mediation. And the idea behind mediation is to help couples solve their problems on their own. Very often, if a couple is going to be choosing to go the route of litigation, the lawyers or the judges, if you go to trial, the judge does not know you, does not know your kids, does not know your family, does not know your soon-to-be ex-spouse, and you're just putting all this faith into a judge to decide what's best for the future of your family. And there's really no reason that good-minded, good-intended people should be conveying that level of influence on the rest of their lives to somebody who doesn't know them, doesn't know their history, doesn't know their, what's going on. It's, you have a marriage that's ending. So you have a problem you have to solve. And I try to bring my own methodology, my own approach of creative problem solving into divorce.
Well, certainly, we all know the pros and cons of a good versus ugly divorce. And, so obviously, Jews are not any different than the rest of the world, huh? I mean, y'all can be as ridiculous as the rest of us.
Sometimes even more so, I have to admit. I think that, sometimes what happens is that when you bring the idea of religion, whatever religion that may be, whether it's, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, whatever religion you want to bring in, sometimes that's just another ingredient that can muddy the waters. You might have two spouses who are dissolving their marriage because somebody just doesn't want to be part of the religion anymore, or somebody wants to be even more devout than where they were when they started. Somebody's having, a spiritual awakening of sorts, but it's not for both of them. It's only for one of them. Or maybe a lot of times you have tension that fills up a household because there's kids involved, and maybe one of the kids decides to walk away from the family traditions. And then, the way that the mother and father are choosing to deal with the child walking away is having an influence on the stability of the marriage.
So from your experience as a Jewish mediator, I mean, is it kind of equally are the money issues and the kid issues kind of equal, or does one get worse than the other?
So I would say that, very often in religion, so because you want to raise your kids a certain way with religious beliefs, you end up having to send your kids to private school. And I don't know how many people are listening and, send their kids to private school, but I'll tell you like this: private schooling can cost, anywhere between $20,000 and $40,000 a year, starting from elementary school. And that is not tax deductible. So if you think about the financial overhead of having a child in public school because of a private school, because you want to raise them a certain way religiously, so there's a lot more, that influences the money factor a lot, because who's going to handle that tuition, who's the breadwinner. So there's that issue on the money side, and then of course, in the cases where the divorce might be happening because of a difference in religious belief between the spouses. So certainly that's going to be, making things more difficult with how to deal with the kids.
Yeah. So maybe the more devout one or the other is, then that can kind of certainly escalate tensions and frustrations in different beliefs. I can see that. And I imagine that, that's probably more so in a Jewish household than a Christian household. Maybe not. Yeah, I can see how that may be complicating. And so when you kind of layer in religion on top of emotions, or one can exacerbate the other,
absolutely,
then it just goes ridiculous.
Definitely, it really can. And so, I'm always focusing on trying to navigate the parents to look at things in a very child-centric way. In fact, I was just speaking with a potential. I was just doing an intake on Sunday, where there's one parent is less religious than the other. There happens to be that also just in terms of Jewish religion. So when a boy turns 13, you have a bar mitzvah. When the girl turns 12, you have a bas mitzvah. These are, life cycle milestones, very significant events. And depending on the level of religious involvement of both parents, are they on the same page? First of all, you talk about money. Who's going to pay for this big party? And if there's going to be services involved, who's going to pick the is it going to be at the temple where the mothers prays? Is it going to be at the temple where the father prays? What's going to happen? There's just a lot more topics that need to be navigated through the process if you're dissolving the marriage. But here, it was a case where one spouse is less religious than the other, and when they were married, they were both pretty observant. One of them decided to become less observant, and I said to this person, I said, look, your kids, you raised your kids a certain way for X number of years that you were married and living with your spouse. And now you're making a decision to change your lifestyle. Now, I'm not here to tell you how you're going to live your lifestyle. That's up to you. But I'm going to try to coach you, to navigate you, to think, about how do your decisions impact the lives and the future of your children? What are they going to be comfortable with? Are you giving them an instability that they didn't have before, because now they have to question, why is mom or dad not going to temple anymore? Why is mom or dad not eating kosher anymore? And all these different questions that come up when the child's used to living life a certain way. And listen, everybody's entitled to live however they want, but I really try to say, listen, let's focus on the best interest of the children, as opposed to just our own lifestyle choices.
Yeah, and I unfortunately, we all get kind of caught in that trap of the best interest of the child, and again, I've got my real issues with that, that banner.
Sure.
And but I think it's if somebody has decided to become less devout and they're not necessarily following that path, and that's all well and fine. But when you think about it for the children, especially at the times of the bar mitzvah or what's the other one for the females?
The bas mitzvah, bar mitzvah for a boy, bas mitzvah for a girl.
In the bas mitzvah, so if the child has been kind of raised in that, and you're kind of going through this potential divorce time divorce at that time, that you really shouldn't upset that apple cart. Let the child enjoy that experience. Let the child make his own decisions, his or her own decisions about that experience, and so instead of trying to just deny pay, refuse to pay for it because I don't agree with it. I mean, right. we have to do a lot of things in this life that we don't agree with, and sometimes it's it's for the greater good or to keep the peace or whatever the case may be, and so you can write it off that way. One of the things that, and I hope this doesn't come across as offensive or stereotype, but I mean, certainly Jews kind of have this stereotype of being, holding on to a penny and making copper wire out of it type thing, right? And so it would seem to me, if we can break through the emotion of, and the religious part of it, that, I mean, it would be just as easy enough to kind of say, well, we can go down this path and it'll cost you $100,000. You can go down this path and it'll cost you $2,000.
Yeah, that's nice and all, but it happens to be that a lot, and this is not isolated to Judaism, but what you find is that a lot of people who are religious are somewhat, dare I say, fanatical to some extent. And I don't mean that in a negative kind of way, but people that they're passionate about their religion. And so even in cases where you might otherwise find situations where somebody might be a little bit tight around the wallet, but they might be willing to spend any number of dollars if it means having their desired outcome with respect to the religion, because certainly there's no shortage of history of people that have literally given their lives for their religion, so with that kind of dedication and passion for your religious beliefs, it's not a stretch to throw a lot of money at it, because it is something that is very important and can be a major flashpoint for conflict when there's divergence in following the tradition.
Yeah, and I'm again, I get to these people, whether it's religious or whether it's just emotional, they're seeking this emotional justice, or they just gotta have it their way, or they're spending $50,000 to solve a $10,000 problem. The logic never, the lack of logic and the lack of practicality, the lack of everything else is absolutely, just beyond me.
Right. So again, to that point, your religious passion, there's no price tag for that. That's something that's priceless, throughout history, and certainly even in divorces, I've seen cases where people will spend $500,000 without blinking an eye if it means that they get to send their kids to the private school instead of having their kids go through public school.
Yeah, Cece just asked to join us. And Cece,
yeah, I asked to join simply because I've experienced this myself. My ex-husband is Jewish and I am not Jewish. And so I realized that, being Jewish or whatever your faith might be, you may have certain parameters in which you are trying to be respectful of all parties involved, both, your history, with regards to your religious beliefs. And then also in today's world, as we're traveling through in trying to get through divorce and that type of thing. And so I thought this was a great topic because I do feel that there are certain, there's certain things in which need to be discussed with individuals that are going through divorce in this type of religion, because you want to honor and respect your history and you want to honor and respect your families. And there's certain things that that they're not accustomed to when it comes to divorce. And so now you're throwing in a whole nother thing. And you're so right with some will spend additional funds if they feel like they're being, that their children are really walking down a path that they feel that they need to. And this can happen both in, in the Jewish communities and in the Catholic communities and all of them. I mean, their religion is very important and we want to respect that. And so as we're going through divorce, we need to really take that into account. So it's almost like, don't you believe it's almost like separating out, the divorce parameters that we have to go through legally through divorce, but then also we have to touch in on our religious beliefs and are we honoring and respecting those? And I think that's really a very important part. What do you think, Carl?
Yeah, so one of the things that you said, you talked about honoring and respecting your history and honoring and respecting your traditions and religion. But the one that people lose so much is just honoring and respecting the other.
Yes.
And that's where people just get, and again, I put that also back into this emotional justice that people all too often seek. They're trying to win. Mm-hmm. And, and it just, again, you're not the only person in the room. Yeah. You're not the only person being affected here.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to find some, you might not get everything you want, but some medium to allow yourself to be able to move on.
Yeah. And, Carl, when we're talking about religion, we're talking about something that's going to last generations forward. It not only is it going to affect us in our past, but it's going to affect our generations as we move forward. So we must respect our religion as we move forward. And if we have someone like our family was with two different religion faiths, we have to somehow come together with the meeting of the minds of how we're going to raise our children, because believe it or not, we were going to raise our children before the divorce, right? So we got to figure out how we're going to do it after the divorce. And so I think a mediator that is, is experienced within the religion aspect of separation and moving forward in our lives is a really great idea, because these are topics that a religious topic is not something that just anyone takes care of. We have met lots of divorce mediators out there, and we have a lot of people that are dealing with divorce, but they don't look at it with that twinge of religion and making sure that we're honoring and respecting our families as we go forward. And so, and you're right, Carl, about the fighting and the bickering and the winning. No one's going to win. We don't know. No one wins in divorce. There's no winners here. But how can we go forward and we still respect our families, we still respect our religion, we still respect each other as parents, to raise our children? And those are the questions, right?
Right. So, practicing,
But we have to take a break real quick.
Yeah,
okay.
We do have to take a break.
This is a great segue for what we can get into right when we come back from the break.
Absolutely.
On navigating that emotional respect.
Yeah, that would be great. And by doing that, then you would come together as united as a family front. So, Carl, this is a great subject. So thank you for letting me join you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for break, young lady.
All right, so we're going to go back to our break now. So everyone just hang on tight. We'll be back in a couple minutes. We're at actually a minute. We'll be back with WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, and we'll be right back.
Okay, we're back at it. All right. But Carl Roberts with Split Informed and SplitSmart with my guest, Betzalel Rothstein, a Jewish New York divorce attorney. Mediator. And yeah, so this has been, and CC, you're welcome to join back in, but this has been obviously pretty interesting. I mean, Betzalel, pick us up where we left off, the emotional aspect of all this.
Right. Yeah. So, the emotional respect, I just want to add in, you asked at the onset, at this beginning of the interview about, religious divorce, and, Cece brought in, of course, something that's possibly even more complex than navigating a religious divorce, which is an intersectional religious divorce. So, Cece, if you look at the holiday schedule, you look at the Christian holiday schedule and you compare that against the Jewish holiday schedule, you might notice that there's a little bit of an imbalance there. So you have your Easter, you have Christmas, Good Friday. You get into the Jewish holidays, you have Rosh Hashanah, you have Yom Kippur, you have Hanukkah, you have Passover. The list goes on. So, it's like, hey, wait a minute. The Jewish parent obviously is going to want to have extra time with the kids on the Jewish holidays. Your bar mitzvah, bas mitzvahs, all those life cycle events. And it's like, okay, well, what am I getting back? It's not fair. Why do you get so many more holidays than I do? So that's just something that that very often comes up, and.
That's so true. I mean, I experienced that myself. It's like because I never got Easter again because of the Jewish holidays, but I always got Christmas. so it's a balance. But here's the takeaway from that, and those that are listening, is that what I found is that I did resent it at the beginning, that, okay, he got these particular holidays and then some of mine got squashed and things like that. But then as I realized, as my son was growing, older and older, how important those holidays were to him. So not just my holidays are important, the Jewish holidays were important. And so then I started realizing that I need to shift my mindset a little bit and really take this in, because if we had been together as a married couple, I would have treated those holidays as equally as important. So, we have to step away from ourselves a little bit. And I think Carl says this over and over again on his show, is that we have to step away and look at the family unit and what's better for the family unit and work together. And so, you being a mediator, I'm sure you see this time and time again, trying to figure out how can you create this balance, which is never going to be balanced. Okay.
Right.
We're never going to have that balance in divorce or as we move forward in our lives. Nothing ever is going to be perfect. But how do we create that so that we can?
Right. So first of all, I just want, huge kudos to you for your tremendous emotional sensitivity, the emotional IQ, everything that's there, just tremendous respect that I have for you and others that are able to make similar decisions, for their families, outside of themselves, if only more people had that life approach, I might be out of business. But
I don't think
for better or for worse, business is good.
Booming.
And how do we get there, right? So my approach very often is focusing on different people's perspectives. I see, the way that I approach people is you only live in your own experiences, your own mindset. Like nobody else sees the world quite the same way that you do. So, especially in terms of religion, people relate to God and spirituality in very different kinds of ways. So while, daily prayer might be important to one spouse, but it's not important to the other spouse. And the other spouse is just, can't wrap their head around, why in the world is my soon-to-be ex-spouse making such a big deal over daily prayer services? Once a month, once a week, that should be plenty enough. Why are we going so far? And it's just a matter of, well, your soon-to-be ex-spouse doesn't understand, why you see it differently. So, you're entitled to your spiritual approach to life, and your ex is going to be entitled to their spiritual approach to life. And the idea is that, let's see, can we both respect each other? If you had met your ex as a stranger on the street and they had a different religious perspective than you do, you wouldn't shun them or pick a fight with them because they have a different religious perspective. I view religion one way, you view religion another way, and we both have to live life. Often what happens is we get into the very sensitive topic of parental alienation, because what happens is that one parent says to the other, well, your parent is not of the right faith. If it's an intersectional religious marriage, or your other parent is of the right faith but not observant enough. They don't eat kosher at home. They don't observe the Sabbath. They don't, whatever the case may be. And then that creates a tremendous conflict within the children. Carl, something that you said earlier, the importance of really just building up the children to, try to maximize their own experiences so that they can make the best decisions for themselves. I tell parents all the time, I say, listen, if you show your child that being religious means fighting with their other parent, you're giving your children a reason to drop out of the religion. Because who wants to be part of a religion that shuns one of their parents? What do kids want more than anything else? They want unconditional love and acceptance from both of their parents. And if you show your kid that you can only accept your child when they observe religion a certain way, if you show your child that you can only accept their other parent if they observe religion in a certain kind of way, you're basically showing them the door to go back out on the street. If you show your child unconditional love and acceptance, you say, my religious values, my moral values tell me that I should love unconditionally and accept all, well, to me, that's a pretty attractive religion. So it starts with you. You want your kids to be of a certain faith. Show your children the values of that faith. Don't get into terrible fights over money. Don't get into terrible fights over custody. Just be the better human. And then organically, naturally, there will be an attraction. Be a good parent. It all just starts with, I tell people, it's virtually impossible to manipulate, to control a human. Manipulate, people, use manipulative tactics all the time. But to actually control someone, first of all, I find it to be morally repugnant to try to dominate and control someone.
It always backfires,
right? Yeah, and it often backfires. The more you try to control someone, the more that they're going to push back the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So rather, just be attractive. Be an attractive person.
And I imagine kind of across all faiths. That means your children are leaving their religions, and oftentimes it's because. I don't know, hadn't studied this, but I think because they see something that they don't like, whether it's in their parents' practice of it or how their parents deal with it, or just their own experience with the synagogue or church.
Yep.
They just aren't buying it. I mean, I'm a Christian faith and not a devout by any means, but and so is my ex, and my boys just have kind of turned away from it, more so than I would care for, but. Again, and I can, to some degree, kind of blame the parents, in our confrontation. Of just, we certainly weren't espousing good values or beliefs to them. So yeah, I mean, it's just, Cece, you said, but coming from looking out, going beyond yourself. That is probably, again, across society, and so many things that we're dealing with. It's just not about yourself.
Yeah.
It's just not about yourself.
I also think that if people look towards the future versus living in that moment of fighting, if they look towards, okay, what's it going to be like in the future? How are we going to see this family unit in the future? I think what we really have to strive is the family unit never stops. I've told my ex-husband this so many times. It's like, you might not have been the best husband in the world, but I expect you to be the best father, and we're going to be the best parents. And so that isn't going to end. And, our son's going to be, who knows how old, in our lifetime that we're going to be experiencing it. So we're going to have forever and forever and forever with our children,
Yeah.
So we want to be able to have this solid family unit where maybe we don't come eye to eye on every single thing, but the most important things of raising our children, we have to see eye and eye. We have to create that moral standard, and that in all of the things and religion is one of those things. And so sometimes if we're from two different faiths, and I tell my son often, I said, well, you're like half and half, you're that kind of thing. I said, but you can choose when you get older of what it is that you want, but you need to be able to choose one. You've got to
and Cece, the thing is that everything you're saying, everything we're talking about here, it all makes perfect sense to us, but the reality is that very often, let's just say, for example, that a marriage is dissolving as often does because of infidelity. So it's very difficult for somebody to forgive a spouse that was unfaithful, and you want to talk about morals, so sometimes Carl, as you're talking about, justice must be served, and so at the end of the day, I try to encourage people. I say, listen, first of all, if we're talking about faith and religion, so I say, well, do you believe in God? Do you believe that God is just? Do you believe that God serves justice on those who transgress his ways? And, so most people will say yes, right? You put it, so as okay, well, then let God judge your ex. Don't let it be you. You don't need that baggage. You don't have to be the hammer that drops on your ex-spouse. Don't be the one who puts your kids through that trauma. Let karma do its thing. Let God do his thing. It doesn't have to be on you. Why are you so passionate about being the one to drive the nail in the coffin? It doesn't have to be you.
To get that revenge, to get that satisfaction. I mean, you're right. It's not you. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I keep suggesting.
I just want to add one other thing, Carl. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but in 99% of the cases, the injured spouse does not ever actually experience closure by being that hammer, because to what end? Right? You have to see your ex be miserable for the rest of their lives? How much punishment would be enough for the injury that your spouse inflicted on you? And this is a question that I find is very difficult for the injured spouse to answer, because they don't have an answer. It's like, they have to be miserable for the rest of their lives. You're like, okay, like for example, my ex wants me to be miserable for the rest of my life. Well, too bad it didn't work out that way. I'm not miserable, and sometimes just, I get, I have to admit, I get a little bit of satisfaction in not being miserable, because I know it drives my ex crazy.
Happiness is the best revenge.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
because they're still living in that space. But here's the thing is, the more you want your spouse, you want to create that misery on your spouse, you're creating that misery on your family. And
in yourself,
it's going to just keep stirring the pot.
Why are you giving that much emotional energy to somebody who you despise? Like, focus on your own life, move on, move forward. I look at divorce as a transition more than a transaction. And I look at my role as a mediator as it's potentially a lifelong relationship that I have with my clients, because obviously things are going to change, circumstances are going to change. There's going to be reasons that they're going to be coming back to mediation to sort out different topics as things change. So, to me, it's not just this, one-time transactional process where we need to, find come to an agreement, sign a document, and then boom, we're done. But it's rather, okay, well, you're getting divorced today, but your kids are going to go through life cycle events, whether it's a bar mitzvah or a bas mitzvah, a wedding, a this or that, the other. And we're going to be navigating the waters as we go along. What's going to happen if one day, one of the kids wants to be more devout, wants to be less devout, one of the parents wants to be more devout, less devout. So it's really, it's a relationship that I become invested in order to help the family have the best possible outcome.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why, and Carl, I just want to say real quick, that's why your show, Split Informed and Split Smart, is so important. It's because we talk about these issues that are not easy to talk about, right? And they certainly do help the family. So kudos to you for having this show. I'm going to drop down, but thank you for letting me join you.
Thank you,
I appreciate it. So I'll let you continue with the show.
Yeah. So one of the things that I keep preaching from as a best practice, which I think all mediators should be doing, all coaches should be doing, preferably all lawyers should be doing, but they should be preaching. I mean, having their clients come to grips, or just really do some introspection about what do they want post-divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as part of my opening to the show, I believe that everybody wants, whether they're in the right mind or not, they want peace, love, and equality. And there's only one way you're going to get there.
Yeah. And
it's not always going to be easy. You have to give up things. First of all, you have to give up, some of your pain, some of your hurt. You may not get the time that you want. You may not get the property that you want. You may not get this, that, or the other. But you have to kind of choose your battles, pick your battles. I mean, as part of the price to pay to get to that happier ever after for yourself.
Sure.
And the more that you're contentious and more that you want to have this or that control, I mean, I'm a firm believer that, that the contested custody is never about the best interest of the child. It's always about money, control, and hatred. And the more that you can let go of any and all of those three pieces, the happier you're going to be.
Yeah.
The more thrive, the better your children will thrive.
Right.
And that just everybody wins that way, regardless of the future X.
Yeah. I think we would be remiss if we went through an entire episode of Jewish divorce and we didn't spend a few minutes talking about the topic of something called the get, which
take us on that real quick. I do have to wrap up here. Take us down that path. I do have to kind of wrap up here in just a couple of minutes.
Right. So just for informational purposes, anybody who's ever heard about anything about a Jewish divorce has heard about something called a get. A get is a biblical instrument that is part of the divorce process. It is a document that needs to be written by a Jewish scribe, specifically at the directive of the husband, and then the husband has to give it over to the wife. And from a religious perspective, the wife is not fully divorced. If there was a religious marriage that took place, then the wife is not divorced from her husband until the husband has given over this instrument to her in a proper fashion. And so, unfortunately, when divorce becomes contested, this becomes a flashpoint where you might say, the husband's going to say, I'm not going to give her the get, because I didn't get the custody I want. I didn't get the money that I want, any of these, different topics. And then also sometimes, for example, maybe you have a case where the wife is stepping away from the religion and she doesn't want to receive the get from her husband. So then it becomes difficult for the husband to become religiously divorced from his wife because she's refusing to accept it, or she's going to say, well, I'm not going to accept it until I get the money and the custody that I want, as the case may be. And what I try to help people navigate the get process is that really the get is just another topic to negotiate, throughout the process. If you don't have a hostile divorce, you're not going to have an argument over the get. The argument over the get is the same, is the result of the same things that, arguments over the money, arguments over the kids. It's just, my perspective on it is that it's really just another topic that we have to navigate through. And if we have a healthy approach to the divorce, the get's not even going to be an issue at the end anyway, because we got to where we needed to go. Sometimes one of the arguments that comes up is that I might have a case where either the husband or the wife doesn't want to sit down at the table to start mediation until the get transaction has been solved. And then, sometimes that kind of like shifts the balance of power, so to speak, and then they go in the mediation process, because once they're religiously divorced, the civil or secular divorce might not matter to them as much, because they could already get remarried, at least religiously, if not legally. So in cases of usually the Orthodox sect, where we're following the biblical laws and rituals is matters a lot more to them, but then it makes more of a difference in where in cases where there people are more secular, less devout, like, okay, if I get a religious divorce, okay, if I don't, also okay. But having if there's a religious marriage, then generally speaking, it is also important to follow through with the religious divorce. And it is also it's certainly important that everything be done in the most amicable and respectful manner in order for the family as a whole to have the best possible outcome.
So does the get come into play with intersectional marriages?
It would not come into play with intersectional marriages, because the Bible doesn't necessarily recognize intersectional marriages as full marriages. It's kind of like, you're living together, but not, you wouldn't necessarily be biblically married if it was intersectional.
Gotcha. All right. Well, it will be fun to kind of explore that a little bit further with you, Betzalel. But we're gonna have to kind of wrap up now. Betzalel, this has been great. I really appreciate the engaging conversation. I was happy that CC was able to join us and have that intersectional perspective on that. That was really unexpected. And but yeah, I mean, so again, one of the things I'll just make clear here again. Jewish people can be every bit as ridiculous as the non-Jewish faith, and
we're all human.
It all comes down to, again, just making sure that people are going beyond themselves. So, real quickly, Betzalel, let everybody know how to beat you.
Sure. So the name of my mediation practice is called Shalom Family Mediation, and Shalom is the Jewish word for peace, for those of you who might not know that. So obviously the goal is, like you said, Carl, what do people want? People want to have peace and equality. So the name of the practice is Shalom Family Mediation. You can find us online at www.shalom, that's spelled SHALOM, familymediation.com. I can be reached by email at BETZALEL, that's how you spell Betzalel, at shalomfamilymediation.com. And again, Shalom spelled SHALOM. And if you want to reach the office by phone to schedule an intake or just ask some questions, we can reach by phone at area code 646-493-9783. I'll just the phone number again is 646-493-9783.
Betzalel, thank you very much. This has been great. This is Split Informed and Split Smart with your host Carl Roberts and our guest Betzalel Rothstein. Please join us on Tuesday, November 2nd at 11 a.m. Eastern for our next show with Tina Lynn Baldwin, a high conflict divorce coach. Split Informed and Split Smart. Bye now.